Hello out there, and welcome to the Schoology webinar, Upgrading to a District-Wide Learning Management System. My name is Ivan Casanova. I'm the EVP of Marketing here at Schoology, and we are broadcasting live from Schoology headquarters here in New York City. I am going to get us started here, and we're going to take us over to the agenda slide. We're going to cover a couple of really interesting topics for everybody today. First, we're going to do some introductions. I've already introduced myself. My name is Ivan. But really, the more important speaker that you're going to hear from is Tara Amsterdam from Colonial ISD in Delaware. And she's going to talk a little bit about Colonial's journey from ad hoc ed tech in the classroom to a district-wide standard, and how important that has been for their district in helping Colonial advance what is possible in education. And hopefully at the end, we'll be able to give you guys some key takeaways and some things for you to think about as you start to make that really important decision to move to a district-wide learning management system. So with that, I'm going to introduce Tara Amsterdam. She is an instructional technology coach at Colonial ISD in Delaware. She's going to be leading the bulk of today's presentation. I'm going to come back in a little bit later and maybe ask some questions of Tara as we go through this. Please remember that if you'd like to ask a question during the webinar, to just go ahead and enter that into the chat line, and we will come back at the end of the session and we'll try to pick out some of the great questions that you guys ask and try to answer them in real time. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tara. Tara, go right ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Ivan. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to share our story with you today. Like Ivan said, my name is Tara Amsterdam, and I was an elementary school teacher for 15 years. And in the past 5 years, I shifted into a role of an instructional technology coach. I support teachers and students with anything and everything that involves instructional technology. I'm also a Schoology ambassador, and my work in our district is from the pre-K age all the way up till 12th grade. And one interesting fact is that I use Schoology both professionally and personally. And I'll go into that a little bit today. Let me tell you a little bit about Colonial. Colonial School District is located in the northern part of the state of Delaware. It's a densely populated area. We have 15 schools with about 10,000 students. It's 9,850 to be exact. We are a Title I district. We have 8 elementaries, 3 middle, 1 high school, 2 special schools, and 1 pre-K.
All right, so now that we've gotten to meet Tara and we know a little bit about Colonial, I want us to go right back to the very start here, Tara. I want you to take us back to the time and place before you guys adopted Schoology as your district-wide learning management system, and tell us a little bit about what that was like and what that decision was like to make the move to a district-wide standard.
Yes, well, we started using Schoology in 2012 and 2013 school year. But before that, we had primarily desktop computers in our rooms. Most of the instruction was paper and pencil. And when a teacher wanted to use a digital resource with their students, they had to use either a wiki or a website to provide a digital access point for their students and as well for the parents. This caused some issues with multiple usernames and passwords that were kind of all over the place. And for educators, the data was all over the place as well. It was stored in all these different tech tools that they were using. So it was really hard to get a picture of each student's needs. And when we decided to move towards Schoology during that 2012-13 school year, it was really transformational for us. It changed how we operate in more ways than we even realized when we first started. So during the 2011 and 2012 school year, our district leaders knew that we had to respond to the changing landscape of public education. At that point in time, we were losing a lot of our students to charter schools and to private schools in the area. We were not meeting our students' needs, and we knew that if we didn't change from what was status quo and become more innovative, we would continue to lose students. So we started the process of change management. And we worked with a consultant from the International Center of Educational Leadership, and we mapped out how we were going to make that transformation. Some of the major tasks that we completed included developing a theory of action and revising our district instructional model and our vision of learning. And you can see the vision of learning on the screen in front of you. This is really a key thing for us. We developed work groups that worked with administrators, teachers, and key district personnel to focus on the policies that we had in place. We had board policies that were very outdated for today's environment. We worked to, we did a lot of work around figuring out what device was going to be the best for us, as well as the infrastructure, because we knew that if we gave our teachers a lot of technology without the infrastructure to support that, it would just lead to frustration. We also focused on leadership, professional learning, and what do we want teaching and learning to look like. Today, this vision of learning is at the core of our decision-making process. So we started this process by evaluating various LMSs. And one of the tasks was to look at different options, but we knew that whatever we selected, it had to be LTI compliant and follow the IMS global standards for interoperability. We worked with different companies to give us a sandbox environment so that we could test out what we were evaluating. On your screen, you can see a portion of the rubric that we used, and that shortened URL, you're welcome to jot down quickly and go back and access. It's our actual rubric that we used, and it was really a valuable process to go through this because everybody had different experiences and different knowledge when they came to the table. And it really made the process very effective and efficient. So we wanted to be able to realize this vision of learning and really meet our students where they were. And Schoology was that answer for us.
Awesome, thanks. First off, I wanted to just mention at the bottom of the slides, there's a hashtag there. If you wanted to follow along on social media, it's hashtag Learn with Schoology. If you want some of your Twitter followers to join us on the session in real time, you can jump on there and get them to join us. So I want to now, it's clear, Tara, that you guys really did think through what it meant to move to a district-wide LMS. And now what I'd like to try to do is to move into a section where we talk about some of the amazing things that you guys are doing and how that decision has actually impacted your district. So can we get into a little bit of how this has enabled you guys to differentiate your instruction?
Absolutely. So our vision of learning is being that core starting point. And one of our goals was to personalize learning. We knew that we had to find a solution that would provide a digital ecosystem for our staff, our students, our parents, and our community partners. And for us, SchoolG provided that. So in a 2014 US Department of Education survey, it was found that on average, teachers use between 8 to 12 tech tools in addition to their SIS or their LMS every day. So that meant in order for our teachers to gain a true picture of their students' progress, they had to jump from system to system. And we asked ourselves, how could we expect our teachers to truly personalize learning with the valuable data that they needed scattered all over the digital world? We knew the answer was that you just couldn't do that. So we saw the ad hoc instructional technology approach as being really limiting for us and our goal of personalizing. So without this centralized digital learning environment, the data that the teachers needed was just not possible to really create that learning profile for our students. It was really disjointed. And Schoology has provided us a centralized location for all of this data, and the features that Schoology has, like the Mastery Gradebook, allows the educators to track specific learning objectives that are aligned to both digital and face-to-face learning experiences. One of the first big shifts that we made was in our curriculum. Once we started to move towards this vision of personalized learning, we knew that there was no way to do that without adapting the type of curriculum that we were using each and every day. We began the process of moving away from box curriculum, and we started to design our own units to ensure that we were able to provide our teachers with the resources and the materials to address the Common Core standards in an appropriate progression. We had to find a central location that made it easy for staff to access the materials, share the materials, and then utilize digital resources as well as any paper copies that they may have wanted. We started with something called SharePoint, which was very difficult to use. And once we made the jump to SchoolG, it was a no-brainer for us to use the Schoology group feature. We created district curriculum groups for each content area. We use these areas as a means to communicate and share district-adopted curriculum. This includes all of our standards progressions, our learning maps, and all the resources that are associated with them. Within each of our groups, we've created a unit structure for each grade level. The instructional resources, formative, and common assessments are all housed inside the SchoolG groups. Teachers can really quickly and easily access the resources and pull them right into their SchoolG courses. And for our less tech-savvy teachers, they're also able to print out a paper copy. So it really offers a wide array of support for teachers depending upon their comfort level. And since we've started this process, our resources have evolved. We had mostly static materials with a lot of PDFs, some Google Docs in the beginning. Now we're at a point where we're starting to develop entire novel units and many more native SchoolG items. Each of these items, whether they're paper or if they're a native SchoolG item or a digital item, they're all aligned with the Common Core standards. Our educators can now track the progress on specific standards rather than how much they've covered inside a textbook. So you can see on the screen, there's a screenshot that shows where the standards are tagged. And so everything that's in our curriculum groups, they're all tagged with the standards. And as a district, we also have the ability to update these materials each year. We do that based on feedback and the data that we gather from our common assessments. Each year, our curriculum division revises and makes any changes that need to be done. So in the past, those changes would have caused mass confusion because the teachers would have been looking to find out, okay, which copy is the most up to date? Which binder am I supposed to be using? Since we have this all in a centralized location in SchoolG, our educators always know where to go to get the most up-to-date materials. We have the same process for our common assessments. In our initial iteration, our common assessments were housed in Schoology in a paper pencil format. And as Schoology has spread throughout our district, we've quickly outgrew the paper and pencil assessments. We've since created traditional assessments housed in Schoology, as well as performance tests that have taken the place of a traditional assessment. And Schoology has been there and grown with us as we've evolved as well.
Wow, it really sounds like you guys are doing an awful lot of work there. So that's amazing information. That's really great. Thank you. Like if you think back to that first year and what that process was like, can you maybe talk a little bit about some of the ways that you talked about this with your district leadership, right? Having the whole district kind of aligned to this vision of what was possible and kind of what the instructional practices could potentially become is great. But how did you go about convincing everybody to make this investment and make this jump?
I'm very fortunate to have innovative leaders in our district. We definitely had district leaders that would come at different times. And I think that we really came about this as a group in our state because we had several districts that really wanted to move forward with instructional technology, personalized learning, and really meeting our students. And we found that alone, it was very difficult to accomplish that task. And so what we started doing was some of our more innovative leaders reached out to several other districts and found other innovative leaders. And we founded a consortium of districts across the state of Delaware. And that was about 5 years ago. And since then, this consortium has grown, and it's really helped us tackle the funding challenges that each individual district had. So what we did was we all came together and we applied for a grant. And with that, each of the districts committed to collaborating to accelerate student achievement and deepening student learning. We wanted to do this as a coordinated effort. So while some of our district leaders may not have been on board initially, over the course of time, by showing what was possible across the entire northern part of the state, there was more and more buy-in. Today, our BRINC consortium has expanded to include most of the major districts across the state of Delaware, and it represents approximately 80% of all the students in Delaware. Since its inception, BRINC has shared resources, we've provided training for our administrators, our teachers. We've also had face-to-face and virtual coaching. And by sharing those resources, it really helps to offset the cost, where if one district was doing this, it may not be possible just because of the budget. We've also been able to offer distance learning opportunities to students across district lines. We've been able to challenge established state policies in regards to complicated conversations like seat time, but to more simple things like increasing the bandwidth in our buildings, because in the state of Delaware, our internet connection comes through the state rather than independently. So one of our biggest wins was purchasing Schoology with the consortium. In just 2 years after the consortium school districts went on board with Schoology, our entire state adopted Schoology as a statewide LMS. Our Department of Ed uses Schoology as a vehicle to roll out online training and collaborate across district lines. One major benefit of that is that if we hire a teacher who is from another Delaware district, there isn't that learning curve of a new system because they're already familiar with the platform. We've also been able to work through some really tough conversations and challenges about filtering and monitoring when student devices are going home. So really that collaborative effort has really been transformational in our state. Oops, I lost my page. Hold on one second. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, that's okay. It just proves that it's an actual live webinar, Tara. That's all.
So as we were working to overcome this, we wanted to figure out in our district what that means in the classroom, because before we had really rolled out Schoology district-wide, as I was saying, people were using all kinds of tools. And we knew that it would be hard for them to get a true picture of their student progress, but it was so confusing for also the students. They were jumping around from tool to tool. So we were able to train our teachers through the BRINC consortium, through the work that we've done together in moving beyond what seems like a really cool tech tool. When you walk into a classroom and you see kids doing something like Kahoot or any ed tech tools may seem really cool at first glance, but unless they're impacting student achievement and teacher effectiveness, they're not really valuable. And so we've been able to offer lots and lots of training and support through Schoology. And this would not have been possible without Schoology. So I wanted to tell you too a little bit about how the centralized location has really impacted us district-wide. So I've shared how it's kind of impacted the state, but within our district and having that centralized location, it's also given us a common language. We're able to utilize this digital environment for so much more than just instruction. Schoology is that all-encompassing umbrella for our teachers, our admin, our support staff. We've trained our paraprofessionals, our secretaries, and even our psychologists. Everyone in the district utilizes Schoology. And the collaboration and the transparency that is a result of that has changed so much of how we do everything in Colonial. Our PLCs have a location to get organized, to collaborate and share resources. That's super easy. We've also been able to have our clubs and extracurricular activities, our sports teams. They use either groups or courses to stay organized, communicate, and then parents and students know exactly where to go to get information on when's the next rehearsal for the play or what's the schedule for the games. They have a platform that's targeted and they don't have to do the runaround of email because all the members can see all the communication and transparency has really improved. Another area that has really transformed our district is at our high school. We in the past were unable to offer as many AP courses as we are today, just because we were limited by the number of staff that we could hire. Now that we're able to offer distance learning opportunities through Schoology, we're offering 22 different distance learning classes this year through Schoology. We have students that are also enrolled in dual enrollment and have been accepted early to college. And this just wasn't possible before we had this environment. Beyond the high school, we have multiple innovative learning opportunities for our students. So we have on this screen, you'll see on the left is a career pathway course that we developed at our high school for students that were interested in becoming teachers. Our high school teachers partner with elementary and middle school teachers to observe, intern, and teach lessons. And this is all done through a Schoology course. The teacher's absolutely amazing. She manages it, but she collaborates with all the elementary and middle school teachers. And it's really awesome to see the students buy-in, engagement. They are so involved in their learning process and what their goals are for their future. You didn't see that before we had Schoology. The screenshot on the right is a fourth grade classroom. And this has this class had students from our district as well as another school district in Pennsylvania. They were both reading the same novel, Wonder, and Schoology provided that safe digital environment for these students to connect and to collaborate. The authentic audience that they had improved their performance tremendously and their engagement. Neither of these would be possible if we didn't have a district-wide LMS. And thinking even beyond the classroom walls, we've been able to build partnerships in our community and use Schoology as that hub. During a couple years ago, we started partnering with employees from AAA Mid-Atlantic to mentor some of our high school students throughout their 4-year experience. Schoology was that common location where the calendar was, any resources, any updates when they were meeting between the mentor and the mentee. And then over that 4-year period, they were able to work on job-related skills such as resume writing and practicing interviews, creating presentations, and they were working side by side with a mentor who was in the corporate world. It was so meaningful and so valuable for our students, and we just couldn't have made this possible on either ends because the students wouldn't have been able to leave class time to have that face-to-face with the mentor, and the employees from AAA wouldn't have had the ability to leave their work environment as well. So it really has transformed the way that we operate in many more ways than we ever thought was possible when we first started evaluating our LMSs.
That's awesome, Tara. Thank you so much. I just want to question, maybe you could talk to a little bit before we jump to the next section on professional development. And that, you just went through, all of the amazing things that you've been able to accomplish at Colonial by moving the entire district onto this district-wide standard, right? And I think you just may have mentioned this. I just want to reiterate, do you think that any of these things would have been possible if you were still using kind of a classroom management solution, let's say like Google Classroom or something like that, that didn't have everybody on one network? Do you think any of this stuff would have been possible?
Oh, no, definitely not. It would not have been possible if we were all in our individual groups. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about the connection with the parent side of the point of view. But, when a parent or a teacher is using these ad hoc tech tools, they have these different codes that they have to get the kids to join, and then they have the parents have to join. That's all done on the back end for us, and everybody's added, the parents, the students, and it's very seamless. It just makes everything run smoothly, and we have that common language across the entire district. And these things just wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, that's great. Then I want you to talk next about professional development. You know, all of the customers and the districts and schools that we work with, you know, professional development, professional learning, ongoing professional learning is just a really important topic. And I just wanted to know how you've been able to leverage Schoology and the fact that you have your whole district, you know, kind of committed and using this one platform where everybody's on. What has that been? What has that enabled your whole team at Colonial to do from a professional development perspective?
Oh, well, our professional development is completely different than it was 5 years ago. It was in the past sit and get, and you would sign up for a workshop day, and you would listen, and you'd have your file folders and your notes that you took, and then, you know, when you wanted to use it a couple months, you had to dig in and find that. We've totally revamped professional development in our district. We had the goal of personalizing professional development like we did for our students' vision of learning. So we wanted to offer more choice, provide choice in the time, the place, and the path that educators would take. And Schoology it started that process, and it's just absolutely blown up and evolved over the past 4 and 5 years. So we are able to offer professional development that is blended face-to-face and online. And before we had Schoology, that was not a thing. There was no such thing as blended cohorts that we worked with continuously over the course of the year, or there was no such thing as an online professional development that could be used towards recertification credit. And now we have that vehicle to be able to do that. And the other thing that's been really powerful about professional development delivered through Schoology is that our educators are experiencing Schoology as a participant, just like their students would. And so that helps them consider what their students are experiencing as they incorporate Schoology into their lessons. And as a presenter, it's a great way for us to model what instructional design looks like. The first thing that we were able to redesign is our snow makeup days. We all know how at the end of the year, professional development that happens June 26th is not necessarily going to be something that gets implemented when you start back to school. And so what we were able to do was we were able to design a system where our educators had their choice and their voice over professional learning, and they were able to track hour for hour. So if we miss a snow day, we make up 7.5 hours of professional learning. And that has been transformational in our district. So our teachers no longer have days added on at the end of the school year, but they get professional development that they're, number one, interested in, and when they're interested and can implement it. So it's not happening at the end of the year. And then we're able to build in the coaching piece as well, which was something that we didn't always have those opportunities for follow-up. You would go to a professional development and then it was over. And you were, as an educator, you were kind of on your own trying to figure out, okay, how does this work in my classroom? Well, now we have that ability to provide that detailed feedback and support as well. For our online options, we have been able to move away from the digital assurance, where when we're doing any online professional development, we're able to ask the educator to try this out and then be able to submit any artifacts. So we move beyond the online training where maybe somebody just has the video playing in the background and then at the end they're like, yep, I did it. So we've really been able to design meaningful professional development that takes place just in time. And also, this has impacted our new teacher induction program. And in Delaware, that's a 4-year blended program. And we designed it blended within Schoology. So our teachers are experiencing Schoology as a learner, and they also are able to see what's possible in this digital learning environment by the way that we've modeled the way the course is set up and how they work through this. It's also a great place to build that community of first-year teachers, because some of our buildings are smaller and some of them are larger, and there might be only one new teacher in a building on a given year. And it's nice to be able to have that place to go, to reach out, to get questions answered from people that are in the same boat as you, that maybe you're a little embarrassed to ask your mentor or your veteran teacher. Another benefit that we discovered is that we were able to design new hire modules, and these modules are available no matter when you get hired. So if we have you at the beginning of the school year or somebody that gets hired midway through the school year, we have consistent training, and that is on our vision of learning, as well as any how to do your attendance, how to do, XYZ, all of those things. It's really built a great sense of familiarity among our new teachers, as well as building confidence. A lot of times we see that our new teachers are quick to jump in and try, and then they're sharing with their mentors and their team members. And so that's helped us really spread Schoology throughout our district. And one last thing that I'm going to highlight about professional development is that we have a motto that's called the power of we. And we know that it's going to take our whole organization to transform the way teaching and learning takes place in our district. So on September 6th of this year, we offered a full day in service for our entire district. This was everyone, all teachers, all support staff, admin, everybody. And we structured this professional development experience as a conference, with the home base being Schoology. The registration, the sessions, the presentation materials, and the schedule, they were all housed in Schoology. We offered a ton of different sessions. We had about 30 in the morning, 30 in the afternoon. We had some that were full day. The participants were able to see all the descriptions, register right through Schoology. And on the day of the event, we housed all the presentation materials in there. So even if you weren't able to attend a particular session, you could still go back and reference the materials. We could have never pulled this off if we didn't have Schoology. I really think the power of Schoology lies in the ability to connect and to collaborate. I found that Your Event Next has really been a key part of my professional learning and growth. Through the Schoology community, I have met a ton of people from all over the country who share the same goal of personalization. At a conference like Next, I'm able to brainstorm, I'm able to collaborate and see what others are doing to solve these problems and to advance what's possible in education. Schoology just happens to be that vehicle for us on this journey. I always love what I learn, and I truly enjoy seeing how others utilize Schoology. That connection and that collaboration is really, in my mind, what makes Schoology so innovative. Not only have we built this culture district-wide for our staff, our students, and our community members, but we've also been able to provide a centralized location for the staff in each of our buildings by using Schoology groups. We're able to track the PLC, share any building information, like morning announcements. Some buildings do a bulletin, the building calendar, really anything and everything that's specific to that building. We all know that email can be overwhelming, and most of the time it's not read as thoroughly as it should be when you're really busy. So our buildings have eliminated that need because they have a Schoology group. In there, they've got their building calendar, their staff handbook, their building anything for their schedule, and Schoology provides that place, that centralized location, and that transparency to build that collaborative culture within a building. District-wide, we've also been able to cultivate that community and that culture. And we use our curriculum groups, not just for the resources that I shared in the beginning, but also the update section. So the update section provides a place for our teachers to go when they have questions. We've watched this grow over the years. We've even done activities called the Season of Sharing. It was awesome. We asked our teachers to share things that they were doing, and you should have seen the update section was just lighting up. And now, you know, that community is just, we've built it, it's there. Our teachers always know where they can go and get stuff. We've also been able to share entire units directly from our curriculum groups.
Wow, that's great. You know, when I hear how far Colonial has taken their professional learning practices and programs, you know, the fact, how much do you think the impact really was around the tool that you were using to deliver professional development was the same tool that teachers were living in every single day? Has that kind of synergy helped scale the professional development, professional learning practices in general?
Absolutely. I think that as we've expanded more and more along the professional development scale, more and more people see the value behind Schoology and what it can do for them on a personal level in their own classroom or in their own administrator role or district level role. It really, it fits everywhere. It's not just in the classroom.
Cool. All right. I want you to tell a little bit about the personal experiences because I believe that you use Schoology in a different context as well, and I think it's important to think about that perspective. But I also want to urge the folks out there, if you have a question at the end of this next section, which should just be a few minutes, we're going to go into a Q&A. We've got some really good questions that have been teed up. If you have a question, go ahead and enter it into the chat line now, and we'll take some questions at the end of the session. But Tara, tell us a little bit about your personal experience with Schoology.
Okay, great. Well, you know how I was sharing earlier about the teachers using the different ad hoc ed tech tools and the experience being disjointed? Well, I had that same problem as a parent. Each teacher would have different apps for me to check for different things. And in order to get a clear picture of my children's school day, I would have to check their grades in one place, then check the website. Oh, in Class Dojo, I've got to check that. And oh, the remind texts. I've got to make sure I have that as well. There were just so many different apps to check that I couldn't keep up with it. And the sports teams, each of the sports teams has an app too, so you've got to keep up with that. And inevitably what would happen is that I could only check one place. And so something would get left off. If I was checking Class Dojo, I would have a good sense of behavior, but I'd have no clue about what was going on instructionally. And then my children's district adopted Schoology, and that all changed. I was able to see what was going on in each class, when things were due. I could see it all in one place. It's become especially important as my older daughter has now started switching classes and has multiple teachers. But I'll never forget the day when my youngest daughter came home from kindergarten, and the guidance counselor had posted an update about the buddy bench. And she put a video attached to it for parents to help us understand, you know, what the buddy bench was. In that single moment, my experience as a parent of a school-age child was forever changed. I was able to see and hear about specials too. I never had a clue about that before. It was completely impossible. I never knew what they were doing in like music, art, gym, library. But that night I was able to sit down with my 5-year-old and have a meaningful conversation about the buddy bench and about her day at school. And I think that experience exemplifies the power of providing a centralized location to build community, not just within the walls of the school, but also beyond. And so you may wonder, what is next for Colonial? Well, this past year, our district partnered with the Insight Education Group and 4 other districts across the country to apply for the U.S. Department of Education's Teacher and School Leader Grant Program. The network was awarded the grant, and we will continue to work to develop a cross-district network over the next 5 years that will empower our educators and administrators to improve student achievement. The E3 grant focuses on the greatest school-related influencers on student achievement. So the recruitment, the development, and the retention of teachers, as well as building teacher leaders and principals. We're working to create that environment where educators will engage in a wide range of wraparound supports, including leadership academies, PLCs, and individual peer coaching in both a face-to-face and a virtual environment. And Schoology is that hub for us to be able to do that work.
That's awesome. So first off, Tara, I just want to thank you for participating today. That was a really informative session. It was really great. There's a couple of questions. I'm just going to run through a couple of them in the few minutes that we have left. So the first one is around SIS integration. So I already know this, but what student information system do you guys use at Colonial?
We use eSchool. So it's a SunGuard product,
Yep.
And we use eSchool.
And how does Schoology work with eSchool? So I know that we do all the rostering and provisioning and things like that, but is that integration pretty seamless between eSchool and Schoology?
Yes, it is pretty seamless. We do roster our classes, and that means that all of our students and the courses are automatically populated. So what's inside eSchool is what shows up on the teacher's dashboard in Schoology. The students are there. There's no access codes to join. There's no request to join. That's all done seamlessly. But we also have the ability to sync grades. So our teachers are able to enter their grades in the Schoology gradebook and then push them over to eSchool. And that saves a lot of time for them.
That's awesome. And to answer the question that was asked around which SISs do you support, we support almost all of the most popular student information systems. You can reach out to Schoology and get ask for a demo right on our website. The folks who handle those requests have all that information readily available, and it's usually one of the very first questions that we deal with when we talk to new districts that are thinking about evaluating Schoology. So just go out to the Schoology.com website and click that get a demo link. One of the questions that we got that I'm gonna maybe go back into a little bit of my knowledge about you, Tara, is I know that you've written some materials that have been posted into one of our public resources around the differences between Google and Schoology, kind of from a user-teacher perspective, and the difference between an LMS and a classroom management type of in-class product. Could you just maybe talk a little bit about that professional development asset and kind of what kind of the summary perspectives were from on that?
Yes, sure. When I started designing that professional development, my goal was to educate our teachers on the difference, because while Google Classroom can pass out papers for you, it doesn't have, I don't know how, like a percentage, I would say like half or 3/4, it doesn't do what Schoology does. And it's not a true learning management system. You're not able to build that community. You're not able to build that culture. It's not dynamic. And so one of our challenges was that a lot of our educators were interested in the bells and whistles of being able to pass out papers. And that's not what we were looking to do. We were looking to transform the way that teaching and learning takes place in Colonial. And so I set out with a goal for that professional development to really educate people on what the difference was between a basic like classroom content management, like I can hand out this article to you via Google Classroom. You can also do that in Schoology, but you can also level it and assign it individually to students based on their reading level. So I've got, say, one Lexile level that's for my high students, on grade level, Lexile level, and then maybe a reading that has some scaffolded supports built in for students that are struggling readers. And that learning experience for the students, they don't know that their materials are different because I'm able to individualize. And so in Schoology, you're really able to control the learning experience for the student. And Schoology is designed for the student to be the main user. A system like Google Classroom is really designed for the teacher to be the main user, with the students as sort of a secondary aspect. And so our goal is to personalize learning for the students. Our goal is to meet their needs. And so we want to use the tools that allow us to do that.
That's great, thank you. The next question that I wanted to talk about was, and I know you've written a little bit about this as well, is the whole idea of integrating the other G Suite tools, Google Docs, Google Slides, etc., into Schoology. And I know you've had some experience in doing this in your district. How has that experience been, and how seamless is the experience for students and for teachers when using G Suite types of documents inside of Schoology?
It's absolutely seamless. I like to explain to anybody that's maybe new to that environment that they're two wonderful tools. The G Suite tools are awesome. We use Google for everything. We use mostly Google Docs, Sheets, Slides. That's primarily what we use. But the vehicle, the way that you are able to design that learning experience for your students is through Schoology. Schoology has the ability to make copies and essentially pass out materials just like Google Classroom does. You're just using the creation piece that was housed in Google, but delivering it through Schoology. So I try to help people understand that they're both wonderful tools, but they accomplish different things. And so knowing what tool and when to use it is how I like to try to support people.
That's great. So the last question I'm going to ask is one about learning curve, right? There was a question that was asked around how long does it take to create a course, or how long does it take to upload things into the system? But I'm going to kind of generalize this question for everybody because I think it'll be more valuable. Like, as you onboard new teachers, and now you guys are a pretty sophisticated district and you've got a lot of professional development in place, but what does that learning curve look like for a teacher who's now onboarding into this connected environment where all of the teachers are collaborating in this larger learning management system network across the district? From an individual teacher perspective, though, what's that learning curve look like?
I think there's definitely a learning curve. The most important aspect that we focus on is mindset. We work really hard to instill that growth mindset because we've seen in the past where people will get frozen by, say, perfection paralysis, or just afraid to get started. Maybe they're afraid to fail, where they're afraid that a student might know more than them. And so we've worked really hard to build that culture in the district, which has been a really important aspect for our building administrators as well, because if a teacher is worried that when their administrator comes into the building that they're going to get a bad evaluation if something doesn't go exactly right, they're not going to be willing to take those risks. But just like we want our students to take academic risks each and every day and to push themselves, we want to foster that with our teachers. A big piece of that puzzle has been the new teacher induction program. And for the last 5 years, I was in charge of our teacher induction program. Recently this year, we've hired a new person to take that on, and I'm very excited about that because I get to focus solely on instructional technology. But the way that I structured the mentoring and the teacher induction program was that there was a course for each year. And the students are the teachers. They go through and I purposely would build in opportunities for them to learn how to download an item, put it back in, how to use Google, just like their students would. And so I think that really helps the learning curve because it's being used all over the place in their building by the administrator, through the mentoring program. And we even offer mentoring for people that are new to our district, that maybe are coming from another state. We offer a 1-year support program rather than the full mentoring. We want to respect their experience, but also provide them the support that they need. So I think there is a bit of a learning curve, but as long as you have those supports built in and that you're realistic with your expectations, you're realistic in knowing that it might not be perfect the first time somebody tries something, but in that failure, you're learning. And you're learning from your mistakes of maybe like, oh, I should have attached that as a PDF rather than trying to do it this way. All those little nuances we like to learn as we're doing. And I think that creating that safe culture has really helped with people being willing to try.
Tara, that's awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. It was a blast. I hope you had fun.
Oh, absolutely.
For those of you who are out there, we're going to be sending out some follow-up information and a link to the recording. We're going to send some information about how you can gain access to some of the professional development content that Tara's authored on this topic, so you guys can actually take a look at some of that as well. That'll come out in the next couple of days. I want to thank you for all the work that you guys do. Tara, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for taking a few minutes to talk with us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was really great.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.